So today is the last part of variation and selection in the year 12 course. Okay, and we're going to be looking today at artificial selection. So we've already looked at how natural selection occurs in nature. This type of selection, humans have a lot more to do with it. So they've a lot more to do with how it happens, and they're actually involved in making it happen. So there's really two parts. The first part is how do humans naturally select either plants, such as certain crops, and then the second part is why do they do it? Okay, and the two things are linked to one another. So a lot of the time when we're talking about this, we're going to be talking about farming as an example. So it's we've been doing this for many generations, but essentially it's actions that farmers would take to try and increase their yield or their profits. So on this slide we can see sort of the step-by-step process of selective breeding or artificial selection. They mean the same thing. So on the left here we have a short stalked plant, and farmers want a short stalk. It's a lot easier for them to harvest barley with a short stalk than if it's highly varied or if it's very long. If it's very tall, for example, it's more likely to get damaged in the wind. So this is an advantage. This is an advantageous trait that we want our barley to have. We also want to have large head because this will increase yield. Okay, so if we just imagine here, and this is sort of giving us reasons for it, this plant here is less likely to be damaged, though it's a little bit more resistant, okay, or hardy. This one here will have an increased yield. Okay, so these are two traits that farmers would want in their barley crop. So they let these two different types of plant cross to produce seeds for the next generation. So the next generation are allowed to grow, and then they are examined, and only the plants that have both hardiness in terms of being short and a good yield in terms of large heads are selected for the next generation. These plants are then selected after some cross pollination to produce a new generation, and the same process is carried out. Only the ones with the desired qualities are selected for the next species. As a result, we have produced new generations which have both of these positive traits. Okay, so eventually, after many generations, they will all have short stalks, and they will all have large heads. Okay, and we give two examples of the reason why this is, or two of the benefits. In this case, we're talking about yield and hardiness. So other possible advantages are increased value of the food. The food may be more attractive to look at, therefore it's more likely to sell in the shops. They might want to grow it in a certain shape or a certain style, so that's actually, believe it or not, better for storage, so better storage properties. And again, as well as being hardy to the environment, certain plants we want to breed so that they are resistant to disease. And these are just some of the reasons for artificial selection. Now, this doesn't just happen with plants or with crops. It can also happen with animals. So selective breeding in animals uses the exact same principles. So if we take an example, a very common farm animal in Ireland and Britain is the cow, a cattle. So they have been put through selective breeding so that we have certain different types of cows. So the cows which have started to produce the most milk, which are known as Friesian cattle, are bred selectively. That trait has been bred into them, in other words, so they are able to produce lots of milk of a high quality due to artificial selection or selective breeding. Other cows would have been bred for meat. Again, we can also see dogs. Different breeds of dogs have been selectively bred. So those with a good friendly personality or those with a nice look have been bred together to produce all the different types of breeds of dogs that we know today. Okay, selective breeding is more sophisticated today than it ever has been. So the use of artificial insemination and tightly controlling the genes which are present in the offspring has resulted in even more specific selective breeding. The use of cloning is now an extreme example of selective breeding, where the exact genetic makeup of all offspring is controlled. Note that in both animals and plants, selective breeding takes many generations and many reproductive cycles to reach the stage where all organisms have the same desired characteristic. Okay, and that is the last part of this topic. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, anything you want to ask, feel free to ask and we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible.